Welcome to Shares from the American College of Financial Services, where money meets minds. Here's a look at what we'll be sharing with you today.
Stars lined up properly for arguably the best situation for me to be under with one of the best directors of all time and one of the biggest movie stars on earth.
I'm Eric Ludwig. I'm the director of the college's RACP program and the director of the Center for Retirement Income, and your host for this conversation on retirement income and planning. I'm joined today with Mike Moh. He's an actor, a businessman, and a martial arts instructor. And actually, he's my martial arts instructor. So, Mike, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate you having me on.
So, Mike, let's start our conversation with you sharing some personal background, because I think listeners might be wondering what action movies and martial arts have to do with retirement planning. So as some of our audience might know, part of the Retirement Income Certified Professional program that I lead focuses on small businesses and succession planning. And I know that many financial advisors out there are also small business owners. And as I mentioned, Mike is actually my Taekwondo instructor. And from our conversations, I know that you've dealt with adversity and challenges in shaping your own career. So can you tell us, first of all, about how you started training in the martial arts and why you decided that this was something that you even wanted to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it all started with a seed in my mind. My dad used to tell me stories about how he trained in Taekwondo in the military, in the Korean military. And, being a kid, I just thought, my dad's making up stories again. And he would keep telling me stories. And then one day, while we were watching Rumble in the Bronx, our favorite Jackie Chan movie, I just started thinking, man, this would be so cool to be able to actually learn. And in addition to that, my favorite Saturday morning cartoon was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So the one time my mom brought me to a grocery store, I remember seeing a martial arts school connected in that same strip mall, and I just kept watching. And every time she brought me, I kind of stayed and I watched outside while she did her shopping. And finally she relented, she let me join. She didn't want me getting hurt, but eventually I was just so annoying to the point where she just signed me up, and that was my start when I was 12 years old.
Well, it sounds like there's a big thanks due to Mom for sure. My folks were actually a similar deal where I had bugged them for a while and then they finally caved. So moving on, many of you may know Mike from Quentin Tarantino's movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And the movie's from 2019, but it's actually set in Los Angeles in 1969. And Mike actually gets to play a young Bruce Lee, the famous martial artist and actor. And at the time, he was in the prime of his life. And so, Mike, I'm sure a lot of people ask you this, but I just have to know, what was it like to play such a huge figure in both martial arts and within the movie industry?
A lot of people don't know that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was probably my 5th attempt at playing Bruce Lee. I think I was turned down 4 other times in different various projects because of my ethnic background, or because of this or because of that, or maybe I was too young at the time or whatever. But just so happened the timing and the stars lined up properly for arguably the best situation for me to be under with one of the best directors of all time and one of the biggest movie stars on earth with Brad Pitt. So that was a surreal week in my life, and it validated a lot of the hard work that I'd been laying in front of me for many years, unknowing that I would be put on that spotlight. And it's been great, and it's been a calling card for my career, and it's been something that's been a fun feather in my cap.
Thanks for sharing that, Mike. Let's transition a bit into the financial services realm. We talk a lot about compensation models in the financial planning field, and not just how advisors are charging their clients, but also how, say, a financial advisor is getting their start in the field, right? Many of us get their start on a commission-based position, which can be really tough to get started. And it seems like acting and that initial start as a financial advisor can be similar, where it's really hard to get your feet wet. And it occurs to me that probably requires some bit of tenacity, some education, and probably some belief in yourself. And so can you tell us a little bit more about some of the steps that you took on your path?
Sure. So, my now wife and I, we were working at a school in St. Paul, Minnesota, and we were very happy there, doing really well with the school. And I was performing. That was when I was competing as well, and I was competing on a stage which so happened to have somebody in the audience that was connected to Jackie Chan. And unbeknownst to me, I must have caught their attention, and I was sent a request to tape some skills to send over to Jackie Chan. So one night, my then girlfriend and now my wife, she stayed up until like 2 a.m. We were recording things, and I was just trying to make everything perfect. And then I sent it off. And back then, it wasn't like I could email a Google Drive file. It was I had to ship a burned CD straight over to Los Angeles. And then I didn't hear anything for 2 weeks. And then one day I was teaching classes, and I was pulled away from the class to answer a phone call that I would be joining the set of a Jackie Chan film in Hong Kong. So I spent 2 weeks in Hong Kong working alongside the Jackie Chan stunt team under the tutelage of Jackie Chan himself, and that was an experience that really opened my eyes to the idea that there's more to life than just um, staying in the same spot. So I give all credit to my wife for saying, as great as this is, as great as you're achieving one dream already, I think that there's more out there for you and for us. So we decided to leave Minnesota. We packed up our car and we drove to Los Angeles, and that's when I started my acting career. As a new performer, when I was starting out, I had zero say. I started back in 2007. That's when I started acting, and back then, nobody knew who I was. I didn't even know what I was capable of. So I just started real small. I started with what I knew, and what I knew was martial arts, and I knew I was passionate about that, and I knew I had a skill that could be utilized by the industry at the time. So I started with commercials, and I kind of made my name by playing martial arts ninjas and just little bit parts in commercials. And then slowly and surely, as my belief in my ability to succeed grew, that's when I started to branch out. And then I remember doing an Apple commercial or an Audi Super Bowl commercial, and just things that started to stray from just being martial arts, because I knew if I wanted to have a career as an actor, I wouldn't be able to do it just by staying comfortable and just doing martial arts roles. So that comes with the territory of having to do things that may not be big time movie things like a Quentin Tarantino film, but back then it was take whatever you can get as long as it fits within my values and it feels good to me. And when you're a new actor, you kind of take what you can get because it's such a competitive industry. But now, as I've gotten better resume and things, now I have a team like agents and managers and lawyers that can do that on my behalf. And thankfully they can, because for me, I love being on set and making movies so much. I would probably do it for free, but the producers don't need to know that.
Right. Yeah. Well, hopefully they won't be listening to this part.
The American College of Financial Services, championing causes, connecting communities, delivering best-in-class applied financial knowledge and education
for the benefit of professionals like you and for the benefit of society.
Expand your opportunities at the all-new theamericancollege.edu.
So, Mike, I think we've established at this point that your life hasn't been this direct, linear career progression. And I also think that might be true for a lot of people that are either in or coming into the financial services industry. And I mentioned at the beginning that many financial advisors are also small business owners, or they work within sort of a larger firm but still have lots of autonomy. And some people might think that attempting to do that in kind of quote small town USA would be a limiting factor, but you've done it very successfully. And that suggests that businesses can thrive really anywhere as long as you're providing something unique, right? And you're serving some unique niche. So can you talk about how did you develop your business and how did it evolve over time?
Sure. We moved our family from Los Angeles about 10 years ago when my wife and I started our family, and we really wanted to come back to the Midwest to raise our family. But part of the hesitation was moving back to a small town, and how lucrative would it be, or how successful could a school be if there was only a town of 13,000 people, which Wanakee, Wisconsin, a small suburb of Madison, that's all we have. And I didn't really think too much about how big our school could get. I just knew that when I looked at the city, I just knew that there was a need for something other than football. And I knew that there was a need for me to stay busy as I waited for roles. And I didn't think that I was going to start a full-time school here for at least the first couple of years. But sure enough, I started classes, and we started in a very humble beginnings in a gym floor in a community center. And I think that would be my advice for any business owner is if you're passionate about something, it really doesn't matter if you're making the big bucks or whatever it is, as long as you feel like you are fulfilling a purpose, and that is in the end what will lead to financial success. If you can provide a service that you're passionate about and other people can benefit from. That was the humble beginnings that turned into something now, which is much bigger.
But did the seller of that school say something to you along the lines of like, "Hey, you're not going to make it," or something like that?
So when we moved to Wanakee, I realized that there was already a martial arts club here, and I happened to know this person. So I reached out to the person that was running the club, and I offered to take it over because it was kind of on the decline, and the owner no longer lived in the area. So I said, hey, I'd be happy to take it over, and we negotiated a price, and I was happy to pay it for what he was able to establish. But he told me when we made the transaction, he said, I think this is great, but a lot of people have tried to open a school here in Wanakee, and it's always failed. There's been at least 3 or 4 schools that have come into town, and within 2 years, they're all shut down. So he kind of encouraged me to keep it small and the way it was. And I said, that's no problem. And the best thing I could have ever done is just ignore what he said and just continue on. And luckily, my hunch was right that there was a need, and we have found a niche in this community, and we've made a big impact in the 10 years that we've been around.
Absolutely. I will echo that just as someone that's been a customer as well. How have you approached things like that, like building a brand and building a community? And is there recommendations that you would have for others? It doesn't have to be financial planners, but just other business owners. It seems like you're the type of person that's pretty diligent about the type of things that you pursue. How have you kind of gone about the brand building and building the community that you have?
For one, I believe that being a part of the community, number one, is the most important. When we have our kids going to school here, we live here, we have our house here, it's a small town. This can go for a dentist, this can go for a financial planner, but you have to make sure that you feel very good about the business practices that you have in place, and you feel proud and you feel fair. That way, when anybody has anything to say about you, whether they're your student or not, they'll agree that you're fair and that you provide a service that is valuable. And that's been something that I've had in our business values for 10 years, is to always do what the customer would think is right. So it's kind of a plan. The customer is always right, but my wife and I have been on the receiving end of some poor customer service and some bad business practices, and we did not want anything like that to be connected to our school at all. So we've always been more than fair with our business practices. We don't hold people to contracts, and we just try to provide a service that other people would recommend to their friends.
I appreciate you saying that, Mike, and also knowing that with any small business, whether it's financial services or if it happens to be a martial arts school, that the community aspect of building that business is huge. And one of the primary mottos that we have here at the college is that our mission is to uplift through community. So can you tell us about how you built that sense of community within your customer base, especially during COVID? I think there's some lessons there that we could benefit from.
Yeah, definitely, and thanks for reminding me of that challenging, but really, it was a great time because it taught us a lot about ourselves, and it taught us a lot about how important our school is to people. So first and foremost, I would say being a part of a community, that's part of our purpose statement. So our purpose statement at Level Up Martial Arts is that we build physical, mental, and emotional strength. We level up lives through martial arts, and we're the most positive community on the planet. And it's not just lip service, it's represented in things we do every day. And part of that is showing up in the community, being a part of positive change, whether it's having a scholarship fund for students that don't have the financial needs to do class, whether it's being a part of the parades or me visiting the classroom to build the confidence of our students in front of their peers. Those are things that we do with a purpose to ensure that we are able to not only help the community, but first and foremost, we want our students to build confidence, and those little things go a long way. As far as the COVID question, when COVID hit, none of us knew what was going on, and I think that's one of the big, like you mentioned, there's ups and downs. Success is not a linear path, but when we look at COVID, the biggest thing that I would credit myself and that I'm proud of myself for is we didn't freeze. We took immediate action, and we were one of the first martial arts schools in the whole country that started offering a full schedule of Zoom classes. And I remember you being on those as well. And we provided a much needed escape from the pandemic. And for that hour every day, the kids or the students would log in and we'd all be together. So we weren't able to be together physically, but because we were there using technology, it felt a lot easier to get through that time because we weren't alone.
Yeah, absolutely. I can attest to that from both a student at the school and then as a financial planner. I think there was a lot of question marks of like, oh, I'm used to doing stuff in person. All of a sudden I can't, and it's been interesting to see how a lot of these businesses have approached that. And the ones that did it well then seems like they tapped into something special that, like you said, I mean, you built an outlet for people when we all needed it the most. So in today's world, there's plenty of uncertainty and there's lots of things that we don't have control over. Like we were just kind of mentioning with, COVID was one of those a few years ago. But there are plenty of things that we do have control over. And, as financial advisors, those are the things that we try to remind our clients of the things that we can take action on that actually make a difference. And what I wanted to do is ask you about setting goals in that context. So has this been something that's been helpful in your life or, and if so, how do you approach that? And that could be either in a business aspect, could be, retirement or financial, or maybe even personal or family goals.
Goal setting has been probably the most important reason why we've been able to succeed as not only a family, but also as a school. And I think that was ingrained in me, not only through school and different leaders and mentors I've had when I was young, but it really got ingrained, unbeknownst to me, when I was starting my martial arts journey, because the power of earning a stripe on your belt and then eventually a new color belt, and then eventually the idea of, oh, not only can I get these belts, but I could go to a tournament and I could get a medal. And I remember when I started competing, it was fun to win, but it was more transformational to lose because of the way it inspired me to work harder and to realize that maybe I'm not as good as I think. And then beyond that, it's, wow, well, maybe I could make this thing that I love, this art that I love, and this sport that I'm really passionate about. Maybe I can help other people and make a living doing that, especially back in the time when it was much less believed by other people that you could make a good living doing so. And the goal setting that we've had as business owners, my wife and I talk about goals all the time. We talk about them with each other, personal, financial, professional, and then we also involve our kids in those conversations as well, whether it's how they want to attack their training for the next tournament or how they want to show up in the world as far as citizens and being good people. So goal setting is something that we also try to build into our curriculum at Level Up Martial Arts. In addition to just stripes and belts, it's about what kind of positive change would you like to see physically, mentally, and emotionally, and what are the steps that we can do, and what are the actions and behaviors we can do to get to those points.
I want to kind of follow up on that. Well, let me ask you this. You had mentioned that losing was actually more transformational to some extent. Have there been like sort of a like a favorite failure that you've had where like at first blush it seemed like, oh man, this is horrible, but then because of that it ended up leading you down a different path? Is it, I'm sure there's not just the martial arts, but is there something else that comes to mind?
I would say that I've failed more than most people in my time on the earth, because not only as a competitor and as a martial artist, there's failure every day. I mean, if I'm trying to do push-ups, and there's always going to be a point where I'm going to failure, that I can no longer turn out those push-ups, or I cannot get that last kick off, or in sparring if I get scored on. Those are failures that shape us. And I always tell the students, you're not a failure unless it makes you quit. So another mantra we have for our competitors is that we don't lose. We either win or we learn. And as far as the acting world, man, what other industry would it be considered successful to have a 1% success rate? So that is something that's really built up my skin, as far as being able to take rejection and being able to realize that it's not a personal rejection. It's just, you're not right for that certain thing. And sometimes when you don't get one part, and there have been many times in my career where I've been passed over for one role and it's been heartbreaking, but had I gotten that role, I wouldn't have been available for this next role. That was incredible. So life is funny that way, in business, in personal relationships, in everything. A lot of times, and it sounds a little wooey, but I truly believe that things happen for a reason, and it's up to us to make the most of every opportunity that we're given, or it's up to us to learn from every setback that is put in front of us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a wonderful attitude to have. I'm curious too, as many of the listeners will probably be parents themselves. I'm curious, you had mentioned that you use the goal setting process with your kids too. Could you talk more about that? Is that something that you do on a regular basis, or how do you as parents approach that?
Yeah, absolutely. My kids are 12, 10, and 8. They're all involved in martial arts, and thankfully they're all enjoying it, and they're starting to build their passion. And recently my daughter, who's 10, who's more physically gifted than I've ever been, she expressed a desire to compete more and to be a world champion someday. And I'm trying to help her understand that being a world champion doesn't mean just winning a tournament. It means building habits that will carry her to success in anything that she does in life. So little choices like, a lot of her friends are going to have a cell phone, and that are going to have social media apps, and they're going to have games on it, and they're going to spend a lot of time on that. Being a champ means that you're going to have to sacrifice some of the things that your friends do and your friends have in order to achieve a goal that maybe they would not be willing to work hard to get. And it's always a balance, because we want our kids to have a fun and memorable childhood, but at the same time, some of those memories that they'll make and the habits that they'll shape chasing something bigger, that'll make us feel good as parents, knowing that they have a solid foundation of discipline and understanding how to go after something.
I love that. Yeah, because it's not just the one skill, it's the transferability of like, hey, maybe you're building a good skill set in X, but that actually transfers to all these other different life skills.
Yeah, absolutely. I think discipline is a muscle, and martial arts, I'm a little biased, but martial arts is the best way for kids especially to build that discipline muscle. And it's about being able to do hard things. It's about being able to continue doing hard things when the carrot might not be that obvious in front of you. And that's why I believe that when kids are enrolled in martial arts, we also enroll the parents, whether or not they're doing class like you are. We really rely on the parents to make sure that they're supporting the kids and also being just cheerleaders as the martial arts training gets more difficult.
So Mike, let's talk about how our listeners can apply some of the things that we've been talking about here to their lives and their practices. Certainly we've talked a lot about the fact that there's different levers that we can pull in order to improve ourselves. So as a college that educates financial professionals, it's the knowledge aspect for us. So in other words, we know that getting specialized expertise for advisors to help them serve their clients makes them better, it builds their value, and it helps them benefit society. But based on what you've been talking about, there's also this physical and mental and social items that we could stand to learn. So what are some of those effects of those things that you've witnessed in either yourself or in your students. So like, in other words, like how has the physical training that you've dedicated your life to been helpful in not just the physical aspect, but also in the mental health aspect, or even in some of the business success that you've had?
Absolutely. I believe that how you do anything is how you do everything. So for me, I'm a very physical person. I love to work out. I love moving my body. And I believe that if your body is in a shape where you feel energetic, you feel strong, that's only going to help you in a business and a personal relationship standpoint as well, because you're able to put your best physical foot forward. But also, it's very important that we keep our minds sharp. Is in terms of investing, yes, I've invested some monies into my kids' college savings. I have different buckets in stocks and cryptocurrency and all that stuff, and in different businesses. But one thing that I'll never skimp on, and the most important investment that I believe to be the best return on investment, is personal development. So anytime that you can improve yourself, that's going to go a long ways in helping you bring in more financial health, financial freedom, mental health, and also it's going to help your physical. So it could be enrolling at Level Up Martial Arts, training alongside you to invest in your physical, emotional health. It could be getting that gym membership. It could be investing in organic and healthy foods, however that is, or maybe it's going back to college and earning a degree. I think that investing in yourself is the best way forward.
Well, thanks for sharing all that, Mike. So to wrap up this conversation, one thing I've noticed that you've done masterfully is this idea of building an actual business and not just another job. And I think a lot of financial professionals and advisors think that when they start their practice, they think that they've created a business, but what they've actually done is just created a job for themselves. And the test of that, of whether it's a business or a job, is whether you can actually pull yourself away from some of those day-to-day functions and still have it run. And so as a pretty young person yourself, I'm curious about how you think about that, how you've created a business rather than just a job for yourself.
That's a great question. It's something that I didn't think about when I first started the business. When I first started the business 10 years ago, it was Moh's Martial Arts, and I think younger me had a much bigger ego, and it was all about me. And I was teaching every single class, and I wanted people to know, oh, come train with the guy that was on this TV show once, or whatever it was. I think that was kind of like my marketing shtick. But as I started to realize the impact that we had on the community, and the impact that the martial arts through me as a vessel was having, I realized that this is not about me. It's about this school would never have happened without the support of my wife. She was supporting our whole family financially while I was trying to become an actor and I was starting this business. So without that, we don't have a school. And then in addition to that, without students signing up and trusting me to run the classes for their kids, there wouldn't be a school. And that's why, as recently as last year or this year, we rebranded, knowing that I'm as heavily involved as ever, but I want to make sure that people know this is not just about our family, it's about our community as a whole. And that's why you see different instructors on the floor getting opportunities to shine. And we have a lot of talent that is able to bring different flavors of teaching and different life experiences to share in addition to me. And I've been blessed knowing that, yeah, I put in a lot of hard work and a lot of years, 6-7 years on my own just doing it, but there was always the plan of giving other people a platform to be there. And that's why we have different instructors now being able to run the show. And I'm grateful to be able to step out and spend more time with my family, but also it's something I still love to do. So I'm happy to jump in there. And lately, as we've been growing to multiple locations, it's something that we've been forced to do to make sure that we have a strong bench of people that can step in when needed. And part of that is developing from within. And part of that is also recruiting the best talent from around the country and attracting them to our team as well.
Yeah, that's so crucial. Well, thanks again, Mike, for spending time with us today and sharing your knowledge and your experience. Your training has really been a huge part of our lives at the Ludwig House, and this has really been great.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
That's all for now, but you can find all our episodes on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and most other streaming services. Be sure to like us, follow us, and leave us a rating and review. Shares is a production of the American College of Financial Services, and we hope you join us next time as we share ideas that expand your opportunities.